Humans aren't born out of laying around on their asses. We're the dominant species. We built all this. We're powerful, and we're beautiful, and we're ready to build the next level of civilization in God's plan. If you love God and you want to build a pro-human future, you must become the victor. But you have to believe in yourself first. This is the truth, and everyone knows it.
So, ladies and gentlemen, even somebody like me that has about as little respect for the mainstream media as one possibly could, who doesn't believe a single thing that they say and finds them to be utterly contemptible, I didn't think that it was possible for even somebody like me to be caught off guard by some of the stupid, malicious, and evil things that they say. However, we learn new things every day, and absolutely, I was blown away. This exchange from CBS demonstrates that the media is apparently capable of new lows. Because you had one of these stooges go out there and actually try to make the case. And we're going to play the video because I know that there are going to be people who say extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence or extraordinary proof. And I agree with that. I think that that's absolutely true. But when the mainstream media comes out and says that the Holocaust was caused by free speech, that's when we take a step back and we look at these people in a new way that I didn't even think we could look at them. I mean, this, from my perspective, is massive. This is huge. And this should be what Republican politicians play over and over and over to really drill the point home that these people are actually genuinely evil.
Media. According to Face the Nation host Margaret Brennan, the Holocaust happened because of genocidal Nazi regime, which defined totalitarian for the 20th century, allowed too much free speech. This is a crazy exchange. Does media really think the Holocaust was caused by free speech? Fuck it, we'll take a risk. We'll watch this. There's a lot of people talking about it. I'm actually really curious what this is.
Well, he was standing in a country where free speech was weaponized to conduct a genocide. And he met with the head of a political party that has far-right views and some historic ties to extreme groups. The context of that was changing the tone of it.
Absolutely
and you know
insane.
that the censorship was specifically about the right.
No, I have to disagree with you. Free speech was not used to conduct a genocide. The genocide was conducted by an authoritarian Nazi regime that happened to also be genocidal because they hated Jews and they hated minorities and they hated those that they had.
One more time.
Fuck it, we'll take a risk. We'll watch this. There's a lot of people talking about it. I'm actually really curious what this is.
Well, he was standing in a country where free speech was weaponized to conduct a genocide.
Oh. One more time.
Fuck it, we'll take a risk. We'll watch this. There's a lot of people talking about it. I'm actually really curious what this is.
Well, he was standing in a country where free speech was weaponized to conduct a genocide.
Oh. She actually said that. One more time. I apologize. One more time. Again, I apologize for making you listen to this again. But I want this to be so crystal clear that there's no room for people to come in and say, no, that's not what she actually said. So we're going to listen to it one more time because I think this is crucially important that somebody from the mainstream media, somebody from the mainstream news, just casually put out there as though it were fact that Nazi Germany used free speech to commit a genocide?
Well, he was standing in a country where free speech was weaponized to conduct a genocide. And he met with the head of a political party that has far-right views and some historic ties to extreme groups.
That's
The
unbelievable.
context of that. What
There is no more extreme group in this country than the media. The media are radicals. They're not in line with this country. So let me make it perfectly clear. These are not people who have America's best interests at heart. These are not people that want to give you the truth. These are people that, in large part, are corrupt. Many of them have communistic worldviews. They are radical, extreme left-wing ideologues. And we've known that for a long time. But even with what we know, sitting and watching somebody speak with, Marco Rubio and just casually drop that, well, JD Vance was in Munich, and so, he was speaking to a group of people that understand the dangers of free speech. That's essentially what she's saying. She's trying to frame this in a way that makes JD Vance look bad by using free speech as the mechanism by which the Nazis carried out their genocide. That is insane. How this is something that I think people really, really need to focus on and pay attention to. This is CBS News. This is Face the Nation. And I don't have any respect for CBS News. I don't have any respect for Face the Nation. I don't even know who this bitch is. I don't have any respect for her. But at the end of the day, this is still a media institution in the United States. And this person is talking to a representative of the current government administration, a higher up, somebody who's actually very high up in the administration. She's talking to him, and she just casually blurts out that, well, JD Vance was wrong to condemn their crackdown on free speech because in Nazi Germany they used free speech to conduct a genocide. This is something that she said. I had to replay it multiple times because I guarantee that there are going to be people that are incredulous and just refuse to believe it because it's so insane.
was changing the
Not used to conduct a genocide. The genocide was conducted. There was also no opposition in Nazi.
in a country where free speech was
Where's the longer form version of this? There's got to be like this is crazy. Okay, this is a 3-minute one.
And so I think if anyone's angry about his word, they don't have to agree with him, but to be angry about it, I think actually makes his point. I thought it was actually a pretty historic speech, whether you agree with him or not. I think
it was a great speech. By the way, JD Vance gave a great speech pointing out the just injustices across the globe from our so-called allies. Like, they're lucky I'm not president, because if I were to see some of the crackdowns on free speech and free expression and religious freedom from the UK and Germany and all these other countries, I'd put 1,000% tariff on them. I'd put sanctions on their governments. I'd be like, you're no ally of ours. Well, you're supposedly an ally and you're arresting people for jokes and memes. Like, there's no chance. You're not an ally of ours. And any business that you want to do with us, you're going to have to pay through the nose unless you get your shit together. Because it's embarrassing. It really is embarrassing that we're supposedly the enlightened Western world, and we have countries that are arresting people for jokes and thought crimes, and oh, you can't pray silently in front of an abortion clinic. Get out of here. If you believe that, if you impose that, not only are you not an ally, you're an enemy. You're an enemy of the United States, and you're an enemy of free expression. You're an enemy of the Enlightenment values that the West was built on.
The valid points he's making to Europe is we are concerned that the true values that we share, the values that bind us together with Europe, are things like free speech and democracy and our shared history in winning 2 world wars and defeating Soviet communism and the like. These are the values that we shared in common. And in that Cold War, we fought against things like censorship and oppression and so forth. And when you see backsliding and you raise that, that's a very valid concern. We can't tell them how to run their countries. He simply expressed in a speech his view of it, which a lot of people frankly share. And I thought he said a lot of things in that speech that needed to be said. And honestly, I don't know why anybody would be upset about it. People are allowed,
There's a huge opposition party in the beginning. Yeah.
You don't have to agree with someone's speech. I happen to agree with a lot of what he said, but you don't have to agree with someone's speech to at least appreciate the fact they have a right to say it, and that you should listen to it and see whether those criticisms are valid. I assure you, the United States has come under withering criticism on many occasions from many leaders in Europe, and we don't go around throwing temper tantrums about it.
Well, he was standing in a country where free speech was weaponized to conduct a genocide.
See, even Asmongold, who gives the benefit of the doubt to terrorist, not just terrorist sympathizers, terrorists like Hassan Piker, people who do the propagandizing for terrorists all the time, people who make apologies for just some of the worst sort of scum humanly imaginable. Hassan Piker is genuinely an evil, irredeemable, subhuman pile of garbage. Somebody that has said, and I actually put it in another video, somebody that said that the rapes on October 7th didn't sway him one bit, one iota. This guy's an evil piece of garbage that is just subhuman. And, Asmongold treats him like, oh, well, maybe he's like misguided and stuff. He's way too soft on Hassan, and I don't understand why. But at the end of the day, even he is incredulous listening to these people. Listening to this woman in the media just come right out and say it. He doesn't want to believe it. You can see, like, every part of his facial expression, his body, he doesn't want to believe that she just said something this radical, this evil, this extremist, and this stupid, but she did.
I was really hoping, so like the reason why I didn't want to watch the short clip is I was thinking to myself, there's no way, right? There's no way. This has got to be out of context. This is, but how is it? It's like that Kick streamer clip earlier, where it's like, no, not only is it out of context, but it's even worse.
In a country where free speech was weaponized to conduct a genocide. And he met with the head of a political party that has far-right views and some historic ties to extreme groups. The context of that was changing the tone of it. And you know that the censorship
I have to disagree with
was
you.
specifically about the right.
No, I have to disagree with you. Free speech was not used to conduct a genocide. The genocide was conducted by an authoritarian Nazi regime that happened to also be genocidal because they hated Jews and they hated minorities and they hated those that they had a list of people they hated, but primarily the Jews. There was no free speech in Nazi Germany. There was none. There was also no opposition in Nazi Germany. They were a sole and only party that governed that country. So that's not an...
It's like when I listen to stuff like this, it's interesting. There's so many conflicting reports about about whether they hated, it's a bit of an aside, but I remember listening to something where I think it was at the Olympics, or I should do more research and do a video. Well, I don't know if it would require its own video, but something about how Hitler was more. There was like a black athlete who was snubbed by the U.S. president, but apparently Hitler was like very nice to him or something. It's very weird. It's just like history is such an interesting thing because it's written by the victors, of course, but then it's like, how do you know what's true and what's not true, to what extent? I've always found that to be incredibly interesting, that it's just like, for example, you listen to this woman from the media, her perception, her take on it was that free speech caused, free speech was part of the reason why the Holocaust happened. When you listen to these people, you realize that a lot of history is told by people like that are just absolutely nuts. And so it's hard to tell what's true and what's not, to what degree and to what extent.
An accurate reflection of history. I also think it's wrong. Again, I go back to the point of his speech. Okay, the point of his speech was basically that there is an erosion in free speech and intolerance for opposing points of view within Europe, and that's of concern because that is eroding. That's not an erosion of your military capabilities. That's not an erosion of your economic standing. That's an erosion of the actual values that bind us together in this transatlantic union that everybody talks about. And
Little Marco's come a long way ever since 2016, hasn't he?
I was going to say, good job, Little Marco.
He really has.
I think allies and friends and partners that have worked together now for 80 years should be able to speak frankly to one another in open forums without being offended, insulted, or upset. And I spoke to foreign ministers from multiple countries throughout Europe. Many of them probably didn't like the speech or didn't agree with it, but they were continuing to engage with us on all sorts of issues that unite us. So, again, at the end of the day, I think that, people give that is a forum in which you're supposed to be inviting people to give speeches, not basically a chorus where everyone is saying the exact same thing. True. That's not always going to be the case when it's a collection of democracies where leaders have the right.
So they're criticizing JD's speech because he's advocating for free speech in Europe?
Yes.
Wow.
Well, so it's more than that. He embarrassed them because what they're doing is draconian, it's authoritarian, it's ridiculous, it's pathetic, and he exposed them. And they're humiliated. These bureaucrats and these career politicians, they're humiliated. He humiliated them. All of these people, everything that they do is based around their ego and based around, presentation. Asman, one of the things that you should be very aware of at this point is that a lot of people in government, especially our government, but a lot of people in government, everything is about the perception that things are running well, that things are going just fine, that they have all the answers, that they're the smartest people. When you have somebody like JD Vance, who has a mandate given to him by Donald Trump, which was given to Trump by the American people, that no, this sort of censorious, fake, let's just plaster all of our problems, put up a poster over the hole in the wall. That's not acceptable. And so JD Vance goes there and says, what you're doing is wrong. What you're doing is an embarrassment. You're authoritarian. When he goes out there and says that, which is cathartic for me and a lot of other people because it's the truth, and these people hate the truth, but there's nothing they can do. They can't censor JD Vance. But he goes out there and he speaks the truth, and they're humiliated and they're angered by it because, of course, our free speech is the enemy. You actually had somebody from the mainstream American news come out there and say that free speech was responsible for genocide. She's not the only one. She didn't just come up with that on her own. That is the mentality and the climate of a lot of these institutions. And so JD Vance coming out there and basically poking a hole in that, they were furious. And they were mad, and everything that he said was correct. Him pointing out the fact that a person was jailed for silently praying in front of an abortion clinic. You know, he could have brought up Count Dankula. Count Dankula being arrested for a joke with the pug, which was funny. It was hilariously funny. But yeah, no, these people are just genuinely evil. And they have been. And they all have this left-wing authoritarian worldview that I think Trump is the antidote to. He's the cure to that. Which is why I was so glad to see him win.
And the privilege
Wow.
to speak their minds in forums such as these.
Mr. Secretary, I'm told that we are out of time.
I'll bet.
I fucking bet.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're out of time.
I bet. Yeah, bro. Time's up.
Yeah, we gotta go.
Oh my God. Jesus. No, obviously, you're not criticizing for that. Sure seems like that. It sure seems like that's what she said. I mean, if that's not what it was, that.
Asman's audience is mostly pretty based. But I've noticed that every once in a while, you have like a profound retard in his audience. Like, just profoundly stupid. And I don't know why that is, why there's such a disparity. Like, so many people are like really based and genuinely cool. And then there's like these retards that are like, oh no, USAID isn't, they didn't find any fraud. It's like, oh God. It's like, are you really, you're willing to go out there and publicly state that you're that fucking retarded? That's something else. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that'll do it for today's video. I appreciate the support more than you can know. You know, I know that some people don't always agree with my takes and my positions. Some people don't always agree with how hard I go on certain things. And that's perfectly fine. You're free to have that opinion and to articulate that. But I'll just let you know that I'm never going to change. I feel passionately about this stuff. And if I get something wrong, I'm more than happy to correct it. But I'm not wrong. And I find that these people in the media, these people in these positions, they're just the worst. And to say something like free speech was used, it was weaponized. Free speech was weaponized to enact a genocide. That is insane. That is actually insane. And so I'm going to call it out any chance that I get. I appreciate those of you who are along for the ride. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.